Happy Halloween, everybody. This is Rebecca you know me as Rebecca with Red True Crime, which is my other YouTube channel that focuses on true crime stories, current cases, old ones, whatnot. So I'm branching out now into the supernatural, spooky story, ghost tales type media. And I thought today we would start with a local case to me, and it's called Lydia's Bridge. It's in Jamestown, North Carolina, which is a little small town that's been around for a very long time. It was started by Quakers. We have a huge Quaker population in this area, but it's a very small, quaint little town. Not a lot of people in it, but it started off with Quakers. And as I was doing my research on this, I'm probably gonna have more than just the story coming out of Jamestown because there's quite a few hauntings going on in that town. So, Lydia's Bridge is an underpass that was built that had a railroad track on top, and it was built in 1916. And they've had some very horrible auto accidents under that bridge because when they first built it, it was narrow and there was just a deep curve. And if it was bad weather, it was not hard to wreck or flip a car. So this is where our story begins. So actually, here's what we'll do. I have my facts here, but I did actually go to Lydia's Bridge and film there. So let me go ahead and put that on here. You guys can watch that, and I'll go into the rest of it after that. From Red True Crime is how you may know me. This is a new channel I'm starting called Phantoms and Shadows Tales. So I thought we would take this time to start with the first episode about a ghost story that has been going on for about 100 years. And that's here local to me. And I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we are going to talk about Lydia's Bridge. So let me show you. There's a little sign right here. You can see it. So it says Lydia's Bridge. Since the 1920s, apparition of a young woman has been seen hitchhiking here only to disappear when drivers come to her aid. So the story is, sometime in the early 1920s, a woman was killed, either hit by a car or was in a terrible car accident at this underpass that we're about to walk through here in just a moment. Let me see. Yeah. So, and then ever since then, the story is when people would drive under this bridge, especially on a rainy night, because the accident supposedly happened when it was raining, a woman appears out of nowhere. People roll down the window and then say, "Do you need help?" And then she says, "I want to go home." And then she gets in the car and then she eerily directs them in a direction, doesn't say much. But then when they get to the house, she's missing. She disappears. And then they go knock on the door. Somebody answers it, whether it's a man or a woman. And they say, "I believe I brought your daughter home." And they're like, "My daughter died in an accident years ago." And they show them a picture, and it's a woman that got in the car. And then they're like, "Oh my God." And then they get back in the car, and they see a wet spot where the ghost was sitting, or where the girl was sitting, because she was drenched and it was raining that night. So I'm going to turn the camera around. This is the underpass where the accident happened. This was a road, and you can see where the sidewalk goes. It was a very deep, very deep curve there, and that's a lot of accidents happened here. So you see, this is the underpass here. This was built in 1916. This particular underpass was. And then over time, they actually expanded it in 1940. But this is where the accident happened, is somewhere along this underpass. So as we walk through, you can see now where the road is over that way. That is the main road in Jamestown. This has all been redone and done over 1 million times. Now, if we walk up this way, you can see this was at one point, a train went through here. So where all the underbrush is, there were train tracks. And you can kind of see where that fence is. There was train tracks that went across here. And there's been multiple accidents over time, because they weren't sure who, as you can see it right there through the brush, they weren't even sure who Lydia even was. And that's part of the mystery. nobody could explain who the woman was that died. But you can see it better now. There are the tracks. So, and that's part of the mystery, because I just got done reading a book called Looking for Lydia. Is a 30-year investigation on the tale of who Lydia the ghost actually is. So as we go into this, I will talk about who actually Lydia is, who they feel Lydia is, and how haunted this area of Jamestown really is, because I was shocked when I found out about all the ghost stories that are going on around here. So, but we're going to go back through the tunnel and back through. Let's see, here you go. Here's another little sign right here that says Jamestown Double Track and Bridge Project. So this railroad bridge span was rebuilt as part of a 9-mile project to reinstall double track on the North Carolina Railroad. The original bridge was built by the Southern Railway in 1916. And the bridge upgrade and double track project was constructed through a partnership between the North Carolina Railroad Company and the North Carolina Department of Transportation and Norfolk Southern Railway. And this was put there December 2009, that sign. So when part of this investigation too is when you start looking into who Lydia was, or possibly could be, you find out there's been other accidents around here. Like at one point after 1920, maybe like 1925, there was a railroad derailment right here across this underpass, and a woman was killed in that too. But we'll get more into that later. But I just wanted to show you the bridge, the underpass, and the area around. And people still say they see her to this day. Not as much as they used to. But there you have it. Oh, here's another good shot. That's the railroad up there. So now you can really see it. So nothing comes across it anymore, I don't believe. But there you have it. Lydia's Bridge. Okay, so you saw the bridge. Kind of creepy when you go through there. There are people who still see things apparently, or hear things, or feel weird going through there. I don't know, but it's just a little creepy. Now, let's talk about Lydia and who she is and who she was. So, there's been a lot of things going on, like right here. The core story, a variant of the global vanishing hitchhiker archetype, emerged in the 1920s and has been retold in books, newspapers, and oral traditions. In the it unfolds on a stormy night. Driver spots a drenched young woman in a white dress, often described as a prom gown, thumbing for a ride near the bridge. She silently enters the car, directs the driver to a house on the outskirts of Jamestown, then evaporates, leaving behind a wet seat stains or a faint chill. Alarmed, the driver knocks on the door when an elderly woman recounts the tragedy. Her daughter died in a crash under the bridge decades ago, forever seeking a ride home. And variations include Lydia whispering her name, dropping a scarf, or appearing only two young men. Now, first documented sightings date to around 1924, per local lore, with early accounts in Nancy Roberts' 1958 book, North Carolina Ghosts and Walking Dead. The tale gained traction in the 1960s or the 1970s through high school gossip and triad media. Evolving with each generation, some versions cast Lydia as a teenager jilted at the prom, others as a bride-to-be, and by the 2000s, it featured in academic journals like the North Carolina Folklore Journal, which analyzed its publication history and generational spins. Graffiti under the bridge includes Lydia's here and angelic drawings, has accumulated since the 1970s, turning the site into a folk art canvas. It didn't look folk art to me when it looked like just regular graffiti, but whatever. Now, according to Grok, this is what it says. It says, while the legend romanticizes Lydia as a youthful prom goer, investigations reveal roots in a documented 1923 accident. On December 31st, 1923, or June 1920 per some reports, 35-year-old Lydia Milstead, not a teenager, was killed when the car she was riding in crashed near the bridge on foggy, rain-slicked High Point Road. Contemporary newspaper clippings from the Greensboro Daily News describe the wreck. The vehicle veered off course, striking the underpass abutment. Milstead, a local resident, was thrown from the car and died at the scene. Other occupants survived with injuries, and no prom or romantic betrayal was mentioned, and Milstead was an adult, possibly en route from a social event. Now, the book that I read, Searching for Lydia, it brings up these people here. Paranormal authors Michael Reniger and Amy Greer, in their 2018 book, Looking for Lydia, uncovered these details through death certificates and archives, debunking the teen myth but affirming the crash role and inspiring the story. Earlier researchers like folklorist Laura E. Sutton noted the absence of a matching young Lydia in account and records, suggesting her the name and details amalgamated from multiple wrecks. Milstead is buried in Greensboro Green Hill Cemetery, and disturbing 2018 photos from her grave link back to the legend, fully renewed interest. Whether her spirit truly haunts or the tale is collective anxiety over perilous roads, the accident's real grief, loss, and modernization mirrors broader 1920s themes of automotive peril in rural America. Now, when I read the book, now they gave that name of Lydia Milstead. That is not who the book that I read says Lydia is. Because all the research they did came to find out Lydia, the ghost is, Lydia's bridge is not, her name's not even Lydia. Hmm. So again, they did a lot of research. So this is the book right here. Now, what was interesting is the woman in the picture, of course, is not a real ghost, but one of the people who said that they saw the ghost, the apparition in the 1970s, he kept describing a woman with dark hair that was kind of like straggly around her face because it was raining, and she was wearing a white dress and she was soaked. That's what he remembers. So when they found the picture of who they thought, through history records and everything else, who they thought Lydia was, they asked him, "Is this Lydia?" And he's like, "Well, her hair's all together. It's hard to say." So what they did was they took that woman's face, who they thought it was, took a model, the same build, did the hair all messy like that, and put that face on her. And he's like, "Yeah, that's definitely her." So this is who they say is Lydia. That is Annie L. Jackson, and she died in 1920. I believe it was June 20th, 1920. Says it right here. Yeah, June 21st, 1920. So it was an automobile accident. So the story goes, it was her, another gentleman, another woman, and another guy. They were coming back from a social event from High Point going to Greensboro. At the time, Annie was living in a boarding house in Greensboro. Now, we don't know if she was romantically linked to the guy who was driving the car. We don't know what her relationship with any of these people was. But there's two variations of this story. One is they went around the curve and he was going at a high rate of speed and it was wet and it was damp and the car flipped. Um, they were all caught in the accident, but Annie was thrown from the car and hit her head on a rock and died instantaneously. I believe another person, the gentleman in the car, had broken his leg severely where it was like the bone was popping out, and the other two people were just banged up, but she lost her life. Now, one of the stories is these three people ran off and left her behind. Some say she was in a relationship with the driver and he was a married man. There's a lot of speculation as to what the relationship was between her and these people. So, let me see here, pull that down. So I don't know, but that is what they're saying. Uh, but from what I understand, the sightings of Lydia have died down quite a bit. And, they've redone that entire area here in the last 5 years. And now that they've redone it, I maybe, she just stopped appearing, or maybe because we now know what her real name is, could be why she's now at peace. I don't know. I do know that there was a woman, that claimed that was supposed to be her niece or great niece that had said they had heard the family stories about how she died, but they never put two and two together that she was Lydia from Lydia's Bridge. So, yeah, like I said, Lydia Milstead is not the ghost, but Annie L. Jackson is. Now, she is buried in a cemetery in Greensboro, but it is now completely, I think it's called um, Chapel Cemetery. It is now shut down. You can't even get into it unless you call and make an appointment. So I couldn't even get to her grave to even take a picture of that. But yeah, Lydia's Bridge, creepy story. And then you find out that, there's some other places not like right down the road, literally like 2 or 3 minutes right down the road that are also having hauntings of other people. And we'll get into those stories at a later date. But right now, Lydia's Bridge. Lydia's Bridge. So, a little creepy when you get down there. And if you want any other certain type of ghost stories you want me to tell, let me know in the comments. But Lydia's Bridge. Ta-da! So happy Halloween. Be careful. Don't eat too much candy. And this is Rebecca with Phantoms and Shadows Tales. Bye.